Michelle, Resistance Chicks, coming at you February 17th. One more time, 2017. We've got a little bit for our Brexiters and our UK fans. What is going on with Tony Blair? I think he might have fallen and hit his head.
He might have hit his rocker, hit his head on the rocker.
Off his rocker.
Here's the thing. Former British Prime Minister Tony Blair has told the EU supporting Brits to rise up against Brexit in a speech on Friday, insisting it is their mission to persuade the public to change their minds. What do y'all think about that?
You sound Australian.
Well, they're kind of from, like, England, probably a little bit.
We're working on it, people. Okay.
Tony Blair insists the British public
Give the posh.
voted
The posh
to
is a
leave
good
the
one.
European Union based on imperfect knowledge, and they have the right to change their minds. Now, I have read what he said. Now, I'm going to interpret it for you. All of y'all who voted for Brexit, you're just dumb and stupid.
That's what he's saying.
And if you had the proper IQ and the proper knowledge, we're going to give you a second chance. This reminds me of one time. See, I don't like big ministers. I went to Bible college, but I don't agree with big ministers. And this is what one of our head ministers did one time. They took an offering.
Oh
They went
my
back
gosh,
and
this is a great
counted
story.
it.
It wasn't enough.
And then they came back and said, we didn't give enough. And so we
give
all
some
need
more.
to give some more.
Right.
Okay? And this is what Tony Blair
Because
is basically
giving from your
doing
heart
here.
can be compulsory.
Is basically saying Britons are unintelligent, which we know that you are not.
We know you're very intelligent.
And that if you were more intelligent and you had more learning, that the higher educated Britons didn't vote for Brexit.
I want to tell you just exactly what he's meaning. In other words, he's saying that we have not brainwashed you well enough.
Exactly.
And you have to go back into the
Exactly.
vat of brainwashing.
Exactly,
And be brainwashed. So you need to go back to school and back to the institutions.
All right.
In which case, where they can brainwash
Exactly.
you to be re-brainwashed.
Their public school
and then
system
you will come out, and
obviously
of course you
has
would
not
not be against
done a good
leaving the
enough
EU.
job to brainwash you guys. I think
Very
it's
correct.
wonderful. So I wanted to. There's an interview, and I wanted to give you a little bit here. You probably know who this man is.
Seems like a lovely
He had all
chap.
the charm of a North Korean dictator's information campaign. The people think wrong, we must correct them. Frankly, I think this confirms Tony Blair's total irrelevance in British politics now, alongside the likes of Ken Clarke and Tim Farron and Nick Clegg. We saw a Comrades poll at the weekend that showed 64% of people now don't want to see Brexit blocked. Less than 1 in 4 do. These people are the new lunatic fringe in British politics. They represent very few people. A decreasing number of people think that Brexit should be blocked. Remainers, Leavers together now are looking forward to how we can make a success of Brexit. And I'd just like to bring up one thing that Blair said in particular. He talked about trade. He made out as if leaving the European Union is going to be detrimental to our trade. Well, let's remember what the trade policy of Blair inside the EU is. It's Peter Mandelson having to resign twice from government and being made the EU's trade commissioner. That's the kind of old boys club you've got in the European Union. That's what we're kissing goodbye to. We'll make our own trade deals, thank you very much. It's going to be a bright future for the UK outside the EU. Blair, frankly now, has never been more irrelevant. This speech confirms that.
Okay, well, let's talk about unelected figures speaking out. Your former employer has been speaking out today, Mr. Nigel Farage. It's not the first time. Let's have a listen to what he had to say.
Yes, that is man. It's all Tony. The war is over. It's finished. You know, we voted for Brexit. The rest of Europe is moving in the same direction too. I think it's really quite a sad spectacle to see whether you liked him or not, a great prime minister, re-enter the political fray on what is clearly a losing ticket.
Right, Michael, so what do you have to say to that? Do you think, you said Tony Blair is irrelevant, do you think it's okay for these unelected figures to speak out if we like what we hear?
No, look, I think Tony Blair's perfectly entitled to have his view, and I think the British people are perfectly entitled to think it's a complete fringe opinion that confirms his irrelevance and diminishes the rejecting Brexit argument even more. I mean, this guy is a massively discredited Prime Minister. He lines up alongside the likes of Tim Farron and Nick Clegg and Ken Clarke, and that's fine. But they represent less than 1 in 4 voters. That's what polling shows us. And I think what we're looking at now is a group of people who really don't even understand the world and the revolution that's going through this country, as if things are going to go back to normal, as if Brexit didn't happen, we can reverse that, as if Trump didn't happen, we can reverse that. No, this is the world now. This is the mainstream, this is the centre ground. Tony Blair, Ken Clarke, Tim Farron, Nick Clegg, they are the fringe, they're yesterday's men, they've been beaten, their arguments have been defeated. On June 23rd we had Independence Day, the country is now rallying behind Brexit. These whingers can moan on the sidelines, it won't change a thing.
Okay, Ian, what do you think? Are they yesterday's men? Are they moaners on the sidelines?
No, they're not. I mean, if you look at the polling's pretty interesting. It's an interesting thing to raise, actually. It's true that most people think, let's give a crack at this. It's also true, if you look at the Avaz polling that was done earlier this week, actually, was that really only just about sort of 30% of voters will be happy to leave the EU if there is no deal. So it seems like the public, yes, they accept the result, they want to go forwards, but they are wary of what happens, the kind of dangers that Blair outlined today. And the dangers of a cliff edge exit, the dangers of us exiting without a deal, are very, very severe indeed and would hurt the living standards of everyone in this country. That is not fake news, that is not made up, that is simply the reality of the situation. So what happens is that you get people becoming very, very excitable at even the notion that anyone should be given a second chance to think about this in a year's time, in 18 months' time, or something like that. And you see, I think, if you look at even the way that Boris was behaving in that clip, really looking rather more agitated than he usually does, the same with Nigel Farage. Your other guest seems terribly emotional about the whole thing. And that suggests actually
not exactly true.
about their plans and the willingness to try and shut down the debate now before people have a chance to look at the final deal and appraise whether this still is exactly what they want.
Well, it's like putting in an offer for a house.
Right.
And then the people come back and they say, yeah, we'll take your offer. And so then you go to sign the contract and you sign the contract. All right, we're going to buy the house, but maybe you need more time to think about it.
Right.
No, we made the decision. This is what we want to do. Are you sure you want to do it? Jinx.
Michael, we do live in a democracy. Everyone has a right to say exactly what they want, and perhaps there is a need for that debate, for people who don't agree with what's going on to...
Here in America, they really would like to have a re-election, but I'm pretty sure Trump will be elected again.
Here's the thing. Once you vote on something one time, it's official, and that means that it stands.
As Blair himself argued that there's an ineffective opposition, and if Labour is not saying it, then someone has to.
Look, people are sick in politics now, being patronised. We've been told by countless politicians, oh, the British public didn't have the full facts. They didn't vote to leave the single market. They didn't vote for border controls. It's absolute rubbish. One of the reasons now I think we're seeing, for instance, the latest YouGov poll has now UKIP ahead of Labour amongst working class voters, is because the stinking, the patronising tone of these people. Oh, if only you knew the truth, if only you were a little more educated, then you would of course change your mind. Summed up by Blair today. This sums up our political system. These people are second-guessing democracy.
Michael, sorry to interrupt. Do you think he was saying that? Do you think he was patronising, or he was just saying that people just didn't have the information at hand going into that vote, and now they've got a better idea of what's to come?
No, look, people are going crazy online if you look everywhere.
They're going crazy on our channel. We love you all.
Because they didn't have the facts. I'll tell you something I do agree with Tony Blair on. Some of the facts that were given out during the referendum were incorrect, such as the fact that we were going to go into immediate recession in Q3 of 2016 if we voted leave. So actually, the reality is, on a lot of these so-called facts that Blair's trying to throw out, if we had the referendum rerun, I'm sure Leave would win by even more of a resounding victory, because we're seeing now the fact that the economy hasn't fallen off, the fact that we can now do global trade deals, the fact that we can now start looking at how we're going to control our borders and look after British workers. You know, there's figures that have just come out, 420,000 extra migrant workers, at the same time as over 100,000 British workers, the number going down. We are seeing a displacement of British workers by migrant workers and a system with open borders that's been a complete betrayal of the British working class at the altar of EU supranationalism by multi-millionaires like Blair, Mandelson, who point their finger, say they've got the wrong result and act as if they know the facts better than the man on the street. No, I'm sorry. This racket, this way of doing politics is dead. Social media, we've seen the growth of it. That's what led to Brexit. It's not going to change. This is the new system. Trump on Twitter. If people don't like it,
But why is it that your former boss, Nigel Farage, said before the referendum that if it was a 52 to 48% result, then there would be a referendum after that? Because it means that it was just the start of the war. It doesn't really seem to tally with what you're saying right now.
Complete red herring. Nigel Farage is on multiple times correct this. He was talking about turmoil within the Tory party. Of course, look, you need to start accepting him, I'm afraid. You said today in your piece that Tony Blair is now the most important man in British politics. I mean, you're delusional. You're absolute. The man on the street doesn't give a stuff what Tony Blair thinks. Anything he says it just discredits your argument further. This guy is yesterday's man. Let's look to the future.
Taking place is because Tony Blair now has no competition for putting forward a stark and very, very clear view on the referendum. Now, that message right now won't have a lot of ears listening to it. I think the assessment that you were making of the polling earlier, about 62% wanting to get over it, that's about right. Over the next 12 to 8.
Okay, I think we're done there. But I just wanted to give him. He is actually. This was on Nigel's Twitter. This was Westmonster's Michael Heber. I quite like this chap.
Yeah.
He's awesome. He's
got nice hair too.
He's quite handsome.
Not to say anything about the lack of hair of the other guy. You know, that's not a hair thing, but
well spoken. Just you can tell that he's very passionate.
Yeah.
You can tell that he's the real deal.
Well educated.
And that the guy
and he understands the man on the street, which is really important.
And the guy on the right just is clueless. He reminds me of all of the left-wing news people here.
Yeah.
It's like
sounds just like us.
We're losing you. We have to keep you bound up, and your minds are ours. How can they be
I
free?
love that this Michael guy has really focused on the fact that Trump is taking to Twitter.
Right.
And the social media is exploding. We are finding that with YouTube. We're finding that you guys have found us. So many of you Brexiters have found us because of our Nigel Farage videos.
We have the same exact thing going on.
Yeah.
Like, people are not accepting that Trump was elected president.
Yeah. And you guys are, people over where you guys are at, certain people are not accepting that Brexit won.
Yeah.
You know, and they want to, well, can we do a recount? Can we do a revote? It's absolutely rubbish.
Yes.
I love that word. We don't use that word.
I want to give just a little speech today. I guess you guys had a UKIP convention, and Nigel, he's on his own Twitter, he posts his own little stuff here. And
it's like Trump.
Yeah.
But now
I like it. I'm going to turn it down just a titch here.
I sense that there are too many people in UKIP whose jobs and positions have come directly as a result of that bold strategy, who are now urging UKIP to become mainstream.
No.
Now, I understand this. It's nice to be popular.
It is.
It's good to get invited to all the right social set parties in London, and I guess it is easier in life to be thought of as being nice rather than one of those unpleasant populists. But this attitude, folks, is not UKIP. UKIP is a radical party, or it is nothing.
You know, I think my mum has a saying, and I think it's all over, it's universal. If you don't stand for something,
you'll fall
for anything. And when you start standing up for the right things, for individual rights and individual freedoms, and you just see...
And you can no longer be swayed, then they get angry.
So, this is our British hour.
We've done a lot for you guys ever since you've been following
We
us.
love it. We love that you're here. We want to bring you news, and it's very exciting. It's like a parallel universe.
It kind of is.
So we want to bring you the accents because I feel like sometimes it's like the same thing happening over here, and we just step over here, you know. And I can use the Irish accent because they're part of Great Britain.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's what you asked for. Different great British accents, and since my Irish accent is a little bit better than some of my other British accents, I'm gonna bring that a little bit.
Okay, all right.
But I don't hear a lot from your Irish politicians, so it's gonna be a little bit more difficult to bring the news in my Irish accent because there's not a lot of stories from Ireland right now.
Okay, this is Leah Michelle signing off for Resistance Chicks, where it's not a conspiracy theory if it's the truth. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to Mass Faith 3 and Resistance Chicks. Find us on Facebook where we can interact with you there on a daily basis, and ring the bell for notifications so you continue to get emails from us every time we put out a new video. And if you want more singing, there are other older videos on our Mass Faith 3 channel where you can find that. Because you can't get enough of the singing.
cold, I'm alone. No place for